Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is CJ. Welcome back for another quick update on the Innovative Marine 75 EXT Reef build, also known as the Be Easy Reef. And this is update number 30. And if for anyone that's new to my channel, we are already 30 updates in on this tank, and it has only been maybe 8 months or so. We're quickly coming up on the 1 year mark, and we've already had 30 different topics at least worth discussing, including episode 29, which was focused on dinos, which I'm gonna give you guys a quick look at the tank today. And happy to say that I believe we have defeated dinos. So that's another, check in the box, another feather in the hat on the Be Easy Reef. And now we're gonna focus on a few other issues that I've noticed on the tank, specifically regarding the sump area. Some equipment maybe fails, if you want to say, some equipment upgrades, and the ultimate, new master plan, as I always like to say. So that's pretty much what we're going to do this video. Little tank tour, little equipment talk. Let's get to it. Stay tuned. So before we get too far ahead, and for those who follow me on Instagram, you've already seen some of these clips and footage. But for those on YouTube, gotta circle back because this is important, worth noting that we did have to go through and replace all of the exhausted rotary resins, the carbon blocks, the sediment filters, all of the above for the 150 gallon per day rotary unit from BRS. I started getting one or two on the output for the TDS. I just didn't want to risk it and run the risk of any nasties or anything that would potentially feed dinos or feed diatoms or anything else in the system. So we did go ahead and swap these out. Now keep in mind, we made tons and tons of water over the last 6 or 7 months, way more water than I plan on making for the next year on this tank. So hopefully, after a fresh set of filters, we are good to go for another 12 months. What is going on, YouTube? So we are going to take a look at the Hydrofill. As you guys can see, we got power, level light, showing even, like nothing is wrong. It's not showing low, not showing anything, and that has been an ongoing issue that we've been experiencing with the auto top off and these probes. As you can see, both probes are exposed, not in the water, and not engaging in refilling the sump. So because of this, my Neptune fluid level sensor alerts my phone, lets me know that this water level is way below where it needs to be. What I've been having to do is constantly pull these probes out and wipe them and dry them off. Now I'm not sure if there's something going on with this being coated with salt water or whatever the case may be, but this is the second set of probes that I've hooked up from the Hydrofill, and still doing the same thing. So when I left on vacation, I couldn't trust it, so that's why I ended up hooking the Tunzi up. If you guys watched my video coming back from vacation, the Tunzi actually failed on and this failed off, so I had two different auto top-offs failing for different reasons. So as you can see, take this, just take a paper towel, cloth, anything else, dry these off. As you can hear, now we have the probes doing as they should, which is working to refill the system. You see the water going in there, and now it's going to refill till it hits the probes, and then the auto top off is going to work again for another few days until until it fails again. So we are going to be making a change. Now, for those that were curious, we will be installing the Neptune ATK auto top-off system. It's going to be the version 2. Now, years ago, I used version 1 on my 120 gallon build. So this is not new to the hobby, but it is new to the Be Easy Reef, and I'm glad to add it for a few different reasons. Now, for those that are curious, what comes with it? Of course, you got your F1 module, which is the brain. You got your pump that pumps water from the rotary reservoir to your system. You got your float. You got 2 optical sensors, and then you got a power supply. So Like I said, right out of the box, it's programmed and ready to go. Setup's very, very easy. Just give you guys a quick look on how it works. Push connect connects the pump to the actual float valve. And then as far as powering the unit, you're going to hook it up to the FM1 module, which also includes pre-labeled ports for 1 and 2, which are going to be the upper and lower level optical sensors. And then once you get this connected, I mean, it's, like I said, it's pretty easy running. Right out of the box, it's going to work for you. But for me, we're going to take it a step further. There was a reason I wanted to do the Neptune ATK, and that's because I have an Apex unit, and it's going to fully allow us to take advantage of all the advanced programming features for this auto top off to hopefully, once and for all, remedy my auto top off issues with stuff falling off, falling on, flooding the tank, not filling the tank. Those days are done. We're going to set this up later in the video. Stay tuned. So the next topic of discussion is going to be regarding the sump and some well-due needed maintenance, if you want to say. We're talking the life of the tank. I've never touched the sump, meaning I've never siphoned it, never cleaned out any detritus. And we got a ton of buildup down here that visually I'm just tired of seeing. I just really want the sump to be cleaner, match the look of the tank and the build. And, you know, it's debatable if it's good or bad to leave that detritus in the sump. But one thing I did notice looking down here is a ton of microfauna. You guys can see them if you look closely. You'll see shrimp swimming around. I don't know what kind of shrimp those are. Tons of copepods on the rocks, walking through the detritus. They're just having a good old time down here. You know, tons of yellow sponge growth. No longer pineapple sponges, mainly some yellowish sponges growing on this rock. So, you know, I decided to finally go ahead, bite the bullet, and go ahead and clean the sump out. But I didn't want to lose all the benefits of this rock and the microfauna. So the bright idea I had was to knock off the Be Easy feet off the bottom of these rocks and then add them to the display. So that's pretty much what we ended up doing. But in doing so, you know, we did jar loose a few monstrous sized copepods, amphipods, you know, whatever other life, you know, decided to cling to these rocks. But it's all good. Hold on tight, fellas, because you're going to be up in the display, exposed to all the rastas here soon. So that's pretty much what we did. And, you know, of course, trying to break up that rock, ended up breaking it into a few pieces, at least one of them. So I decided to build a little, you know, stationary mound of rocks that ended up turning into some habitat for some of the gobies to bury under. And then the other pieces, you know, we stuck some GSP, gonna let it grow on it there. And then as far as whatever else was left, we ended up adding it to the other side of the tank as a kind of footstool or a standing plate of rock, if you want to call it that, to allow the bubble coral to set on it. So that's pretty much what I used it for. The bubble coral setting on one, the clam setting on another, you know, GSP setting on one, and all of that life, all of those microfauna sponges are still in the system, which ultimately is what I wanted. So phase 2 of the plan is going to be very simple. It's time to pull out the handy dandy $30 bucket shop vac from Home Depot and get in here and suck out whatever I could. Now, I didn't go too crazy, you know, completely cleaning it out and, you know, soaking the sump and acid and just knocking everything out of it. I did have a plan, meaning I wanted to kind of do a majority of it this time, get the bulk of it out, and then each and every water change after this, and I'll get in there and kind of fine clean each compartment, meaning completely cleaning the bottom where there's nothing showing. And then, of course, you know, making sure that it stays clean and kind of matches what I wanted. I want to be able to look through the glass windows, not see a bunch of crustaceans and different things on it. And then, of course, you know, doing this includes a water change. So, you know, pumping water back in, of course, everything goes well until you get a leak on the ground, which is what you see there. You know, that's the story of my life. But we got the water change done. We got the sump half cleaned. We're ready to roll. Man, I gotta tell you guys, we're only halfway through the video and you've already seen just a glimpse of how much work I've really been putting in to everything outside of the display regarding the sump, you know, the rotary units, equipment changes, just everything in between. And it's important to sit back and just enjoy what you're doing this for. And by that, I'm talking about the display. You know, of course, we had dinos a few weeks ago. We've lost a bunch of SPS corals. We definitely have had some issues that we're going to still have to overcome. But the good news is We have no more dinos. We have clean white sand again. The glass is clear. The fish are lively and healthy. And the cores that we have left are still worth enjoying and still worth, setting back and soaking in. And that's kind of the point of this video. And I kind of take you guys through all of the changes that I'm doing, because the ultimate goal is, before we get to the 1 year mark, to have tested the equipment I wanted to try, upgraded the equipment that I have the opportunity to upgrade, and get the tank set up to where it's the minimal amount of work needed, meaning the equipment's doing the work for me, the tank controller's doing the controlling for me, and by the time we hit that 1 year mark, we will finally be done with all of the, touching stuff, finicking with stuff, hands in the tank, changing equipment, experimenting on things. I want all of that out of the way before we hit the 1 year mark. And we're definitely on track for that. In this video, hopefully by the time we get to the end, you kind of understand the purpose of this and, the master plan going forward. So that's enough of the tank. Let's get back to work. There's a few more changes. So I'm gonna take you guys back underneath the Be Easy Reef, and we're gonna discuss a little bit about the equipment that's down here and running, and the equipment that still may need to be changed in the future or removed. So for now, this is kind of where we're at. I kind of like how it's looking, but I also hate the cords that are exposed. So you guys, if you don't know me already, definitely have some OCD, so I will have to get in there and hide all of those cables. I just want to make sure the equipment is going to be in its permanent locations before I, take the time and reroute those cords. I don't want to have to tear them down again like I did this time around. So one thing I do want to mention, I am still using mechanical filtration. I've been doing this since I had to go through and declutter and declunk the media that was full of sediment and everything else from not using this. So we will be using mechanical filtration going forward on the Be Easy Reef. And then one thing that has been steady as a heartbeat has been this Simply Aquatics DC Skimmer. Now this thing is an absolute beast. It's been running non-stop on the Be Easy Reef. I have not even taken it apart to service the pumps or clean it yet. It's definitely probably due for it, but as you guys can tell, water line is set around the black rim on the body of the skimmer, and it has no problem pulling in fresh air from outside through 25 feet of line and, skimming however I want it to skim. I can set it dry, I can set it wet, and it's always just gotten the job done. Now the big thing that's going to question right now is going to be the Santa Monica Rain2 Algae scrubber. As you guys see, it's disabled, it's not running, has no water going through it, no lights. I just haven't had the need for the export that this provides yet on the Be Easy Reef. And I'm wondering if that day is going to come. It's just not here yet. And then their new piece of equipment. If you guys have not noticed, we have a Calstair on the Be Easy Reef. And this is not a Calstair that's out on the market yet. It's actually in, development, if you want to call it that, by 3D Reefing. So he's on Instagram. I believe this may be available around spring or summertime. So I have the pleasure of beta testing it and having my first ever Calstair. As you guys can see on the bottom, there's about 1.5 inches, 2 inches of calc slowly being mixed, and I'm not getting a slurry or anything. And then once it's mixed, it allows me to dose it to the tank. Now this is replacing my old 5-gallon jug that I was using for my calc reservoir. Now this got the job done. It just required me to have to lift it, move it, refill it, remix the calc, usually every 1.5 weeks or 2 weeks or so. But running this through the Calstair allows me to tap it into my 15-gallon Rody reservoir, which means I have an unlimited supply of fresh water to mix with the calc, and pretty much eliminated the need for the jug. And I like that, less maintenance on the tank, definitely good for me. Now the other dosing heads, we're going to use 2-part. Now, of course, this is just the alkalinity. Now I have it hooked up, but it's not running. The purpose for it is as a backup plan if I need to, bump the tank's alkalinity or the calc stops working. I already have this in line, I already have it ready to go, and that'll definitely, save me later down the road when the time comes. Now, for those that are curious, this is pretty much how it works. The dosing still runs just like it did with the 5-gallon jug, but now it just pumps the fresh Rody water into the Calstair, at around, I'd say 40 milliliters 24 times a day. And then as it overflows, it runs into the sump, and then it just kind of turns off and goes back to normal. So I pretty much did not have to change anything regarding the dosing, the setup. It's the same length of cord, so I didn't really have to recalibrate. And ultimately, guys, this thing is working perfect. So, Calstair for the win. Definitely looking forward to not having to do this part of the maintenance routine. And so far, so good. So if you guys are interested, go give them a follow on Instagram, 3D Reefing. Hit them up if you're interested in this Calstair for when the time comes for its release. So the last piece of equipment we're going to cover is going to be the Neptune ATK version 2 auto top off. As you guys can see, it is installed through the magnetic mount on the side of the sump, and it also includes the template inside of Fusion, which kind of does the install for you. I already did it, so I'm not going to run through it on this video, but I just wanted to show you it was there. But the main reason I wanted to do this was to show you guys the amount of control and redundancies that you can build into this ATK. Now, it physically already has a lower and upper level optical sensor and a float switch that will shut off the water from entering the system no matter what. But when it comes to programming, because I have a fluid level sensor already monitoring the sump's water level, I can also tie that in to the control of the ATK. So if there's any situation where the optical sensors fail on the ATK, then the fluid level sensors for the sump can also control it via the apex. So we're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers of redundancy that's built into this tank that will forever prevent any more issues as far as overfilling, underfilling, or me not being alerted to anything being needed. Now, the only thing worth mentioning that I have to share is going to be this little kind of siphon break, if you want to call it that. It's a coupler that's built into the push connects that you have to have in between the pump. If you have a sump that's higher than or a reservoir that's higher than the sump, in my situation I did. I want to make sure I mention that. You don't want that shooting on the floor. Make sure you have it somewhere safe. And then when it comes to the F1 module, fortunately I could not mount it to my adaptive reef control board because the cords were too short. I couldn't make it work, but they are extension cords if I decide to do that later. But for now, I just want to give you guys a look on how it is. Let's hook to the apex. It's all green, but if it's standing alone, it gives you a blue light when it's as far as steady, a green light when the pump's on, and then a red light if there's an issue. But connected to the apex, it just sends you push notifications like normal, and we're good to go. And that concludes all the latest equipment changes, upgrades, failures, and everything in between regarding the engine that runs the Be Easy Reef, also known as the sump, underneath the tank, and the rotary unit and the Be Easy water change closet that fills the tank with water changes. So at this point, I think it's a good stopping point for the video. But before we go, there is one other thing I do want to share with you. There's going to be some food I've been using for the last few months, probably the last 4 or 5 months. It's the AquaForce liquid food line, which has tons of different kinds, mysis, rotifers, veggies. There's even phytoplankton. There's all kinds of things you can get that are liquid that do not need to be thawed out. I can't lie to you guys, I have not thawed out a piece of frozen food since using these products, and the fish love it. And the thing I like about it is that the rotifers are good for the corals, the mysis is good for the wrasses and the carnivores, and the veggie is good for the tangs. It's good for the herbivore fish. So adding this all in at once clouds the tank up, tons of particulates for the corals to eat, tons of little bites for the fish to eat, and it's a great complement to the auto feeder on my system, which only feeds dry, flakes, pellets, and it kind of helps give my fish a well-rounded diet. So I just want to make sure I mention this to you all because I have been using it for long enough to feel, like I got a good hold for it as far as how it affects the tank. Now, I will mention you don't have to refrigerate it until you actually open them. So you can store them, room temperature on the shelf. But once you open them, you got to keep them in the refrigerator and then just add them to your tank, just a squirt, and keep it moving. So at this point, I think we are going to go ahead and stop this video. So if you guys are interested in more content or daily updates, make sure go stop by my Instagram at CJ's Aquariums. And for those who are new to the channel, you just stumbled across this video and you like what you see, keep in mind we are nowhere near done yet. So hit the subscribe button, go back and review the playlist. We got tons and tons of documented, hard work and labor, trials, tribulations on the Be Easy Reef already. And we're just going to keep continuing. So at this point, hey, you guys can like, comment, subscribe. You guys keep doing what y'all do. Y'all be easy and happy reefing. Peace.